Today is Wednesday, June 1st. What to know about the U.S. walking a fine line. President Biden's new plan to grant a big request from Ukraine without provoking Russia. Also, the tech industry versus Texas, what the Supreme Court decided about a controversial new law about social media regulation. Plus, why K-pop supergroup BTS made a trip to the White House. How a high-ranking admiral is making history in the U.S. military. And what's behind more companies using robots. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. Well, the governor of Texas issued a state of emergency for the grieving city of Uvalde. This will help the state keep crisis response resources coming for those who need them. For example, the temporary facility for people seeking mental health support and other resources. So far, that facility has been busy. Since Uvalde is a small city, almost everyone knew at least one of the 19 children and 2 adults who were killed in last week's school shooting. Also this week, the first funerals started. Funeral directors, florists, and therapy dogs have come in from all over Texas, volunteering to help out for free. Families have also gotten support from people even further away, since millions of dollars have been raised on GoFundMe. Separately, the local school district's police chief has been facing a lot of criticism since authorities say he's the one who decided against immediately storming the classroom where the shooter opened fire. And now he's reportedly stopped cooperating with state investigators who have been looking into the response. State police told the Austin American-Statesman that he did give them a statement right after the shooting, but then 3 days ago, they requested a follow-up interview and still have not heard back. To be continued. The U.S. Supreme Court blocked a controversial Texas law that would have stopped social media companies from moderating certain content on their platforms. So to be clear, the high court justices did not actually weigh in on the merits of this law. They just said it should be on hold for now, while lower federal courts make more long-term decisions. So what's the deal with this law in the first place? Well, it basically says platforms like Facebook and Twitter cannot ban users or remove their posts just based on political viewpoints. It would have let the state of Texas or individual users sue companies over this kind of issue. The lawmakers who first proposed it accused tech giants of purposely silencing conservative viewpoints online. They say that amounts to discrimination. But the platforms insist they moderate content evenly. And 2 industry trade groups sued, saying if the law was in effect, hateful content would run rampant online, like pro-Nazi speech, terrorist propaganda, and foreign government disinformation. Basically, it comes down to, should social media sites be treated like newspapers, free to decide what gets published? Or are they more like phone companies that cannot tell people what to say over phone lines? These are the arguments both sides are bringing up in court. And if the case keeps getting bounced around, it could end up back in front of the U.S. Supreme Court eventually. By the way, this case should have implications in other states as well. Florida's legislature has already passed a social media law like the one in Texas that's also been blocked by courts. And lawmakers in other states are said to be considering similar laws, too. The U.S. decided to send Ukrainians more advanced rocket systems to give them a better edge on the battlefield. This is something that's been debated for a while because Ukrainian leaders have been begging for the high-tech weapons. But there's been some concern that giving too powerful of weapons could help Ukraine hit targets deep within Russia, escalating the war even further. Well, the White House eventually made the deal with Ukraine. And President Biden laid out the decision-making process in an op-ed for the New York Times, making it clear, quote, "We do not seek a war between NATO and Russia." Apparently, Ukrainian officials have promised the new rocket systems will only be used within their borders. But unlike the weapons Ukraine already has, these will help Ukrainian troops strike targets more precisely and from further away. Senior administration officials told news outlets the rocket systems are part of a new aid package that's expected to be formally unveiled today. This morning, a 2-month lockdown ended in Shanghai, China, since the COVID-19 outbreak there has finally let up. And this could impact the rest of the world, too. 25 million people live in Shanghai. It's China's financial capital, and it's home to the world's busiest port, making it crucial for global supply chains. Factories were only allowed to stay open if workers slept on site, so production was limited, particularly at semiconductor plants, making the global chip shortage worse. Well, today, people in Shanghai were finally able to leave home, return to work, use public transportation, and drive their cars for the first time in months. Pictures on social media showed people swarming the streets, chanting and dancing. One official survey even found manufacturing is starting to pick up. More news is coming up, including a big first for the U.S. military. But right now, let's take a quick break for our sponsor. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. People don't always realize that physical symptoms like headaches, teeth grinding, and even digestive issues can be indicators of stress. For me, the source of stress is a combination of things usually, when both my personal and professional lives have a lot going on at once. And that can have a big impact on my mood and how I show up for those closest to me. So it's really important that I deal with it in a healthy way before I start taking it out on others. And therapy is one way I highly recommend because it can help you not only in the moment, but also in the long term. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy. So give it a try and see if online therapy can help lower your stress. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and the Newsworthy listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/newsworthy. That's BetterHelp, betterhelp.com/newsworthy. Today, for the first time in history, a woman will lead a branch of the American Armed Forces. Admiral Linda Fagan steps into the role of Coast Guard Commandant today and becomes the first woman to be the top officer in any of the military services. She was President Biden's pick, and the Senate confirmed her last month. Before this, she was the Coast Guard's second in command. And back in the 80s, when she graduated from the Coast Guard Academy, it was only the 6th class that included women at all. President Biden said he hopes this, quote, signals to women and girls across our nation they have a place in protecting their country at the highest level. The megastars in the Korean pop group BTS stopped by the White House this week. They met with President Biden to talk about putting an end to hate crimes targeting people of Asian descent, since the number of those attacks in the U.S. has gone up in the past year. The boy group also discussed the importance of diversity and inclusion. The K-pop stars are known for using their lyrics and social campaigns to inspire and empower young people around the world. And they made the trip to the White House yesterday, the final day of Asian American and Pacific Islanders Heritage Month. Today is the start of Pride Month, a time to show support for the LGBTQ community. It's held in June because of a police raid on a New York City gay bar back in June of 1969. The people inside the bar resisted arrest that night, and it touched off 3 days of riots in the city known as the Stonewall Uprising. The first gay pride marches began the following year. Now, various Pride Month parades, races, memorials, concerts, workshops, and more happen all around the country throughout the month of June. The largest parade is in NYC on June 26th. Virgin Atlantic is now one of the few global airlines to allow their crew to show off their tattoos. The airline lifted its ban on visible body art for its crew this week, saying it wants everyone to express their unique identities and know they belong. The company still bans any visible tattoos showing things like nudity or profanity, though, and the ink must be below the neck. This policy change comes as the airline industry overall scrambles to recruit more staff and meet the demand for flights after the pandemic. While most airlines still have a tattoo ban of some kind for customer-facing employees, this may mark a larger shift across the industry, which is known for having strict rules for flight attendants' appearance. It was only in 2019 when Virgin Atlantic was one of the first airlines to relax strict makeup rules for women crew members. TikTok apparently wants to make it easier to look at videos without any distractions. TechCrunch reports the social media platform is testing out a clear mode feature. It clears all the on-screen clutter, so when it's on, you will no longer see usernames, captions, or buttons as you scroll through the app. In some cases, you can even get rid of likes, comments, and shares. For now, clear mode is just being tested with select users. It's not clear when or if it'll be rolled out more widely. This is also just one of many features TikTok is testing right now. It's also working on a live mobile gaming feature, a watch history feature that makes it easier to rediscover videos you forgot to like, as well as a private dislike button that can help users identify comments they think are irrelevant or inappropriate. So get ready to see some upset fast food fans on social media. It looks like the beloved Mexican pizza is off the Taco Bell menu again. The fast food chain brought it back just 2 weeks ago, and demand for Mexican pizzas ended up being 7 times higher than when it was first discontinued in 2020. Well, now the whole chain is dealing with shortages. The company said it's now in talks with suppliers to bring Mexican pizzas back when they can, and it hopes to have them as a permanent menu item this fall. Well, that's it for the main news today. So now it's time for Work Wednesday, when we break down one interesting career or work-related news story every Wednesday. But first, a message from our sponsor, Tommy John. Style or comfort? How do you choose? Well, we no longer have to, thanks to Tommy John's new loungewear. The fabrics are super soft and cozy and always feel really high quality and look great. It feels like a treat every time I put on my Tommy John lounge joggers or my women's lounge Henley, even though I wear them at some point practically every day. And get this, Tommy John loungewear features tagless labels because you can't be comfy when a tag is scratching you. And when you're getting that kind of thought and detail put into comfort, you know you're in good hands. My husband knows it too. He's really picky about his comfort level, so that's saying a lot. So hint, hint, it's a great place to look if you're still on the hunt for a Father's Day gift. Because Tommy John does not have customers, they have fanatics, and I'm one of them. So see for yourself and get 20% off your first order right now at TommyJohn.com/newsworthy. Shop TommyJohn.com/newsworthy for 20% off. TommyJohn.com/newsworthy. See site for details. Okay, now back to Work Wednesday. Well, companies are finding some interesting ways to get around the worker shortage, like they're leaning on robots instead of humans. The Association for Advancing Automation says orders for workplace robots in the U.S. have gone up by a record 40% the last few months, as compared to the same time period last year. And last year wasn't exactly a slow year. Orders for robots in the U.S. totaled 1.6 million in 2021, and that was up from 2020. For years, most robot workers in the U.S. have been used in the auto industry. They've taken on tasks like welding on assembly lines. But in the last year or so, robots have expanded into other industries too, like food production, consumer products, and pharmaceuticals. The Wall Street Journal cites executives who say robots are getting more advanced, meaning they can now be programmed for more complex tasks. And they're getting easier to use too. Plus, more employers have embraced them since they've struggled to find enough workers, especially for odd shifts like overnights or weekends. Some economists worry about this trend, though, saying if the shift to automation goes too quickly, it can destroy a lot of jobs. So if the labor shortage is temporary, we might see the opposite problem in a few years. Too many human workers with not enough places to go. All right, thank you so much for listening and joining us as part of your daily routine. We'll catch you up on much more news to know tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.